Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside the Newsroom. I'm Maddie Paul, and behind me is the scene from Laverne, Minnesota from our live cam, which you can witness for yourself on KELOLAND.com. This one was pretty today. I just wanted something that kind of popped out versus like my gray purple shirt, so I'm happy with Laverne. It's looking beautiful today. Talk about those sunsets too. A lot of you sent in you share photos to our page on KELOLAND.com where we see your viewers submitted photos and videos. You captured some great sunrises, not sunsets, this morning in the KELOLAND area. They were really fun to watch. But let's get on track. This is Inside the Newsroom. We bring you the trending stories of the KELOLAND area, and we bring on our newsroom staff members to talk about those trending stories. They just happen to be the same stories that you see every day on our newscasts and online at KELOLAND.com. We have a lot to get into today, but first I wanted to start off by saying that there is a dedicated web page on KELOLAND.com for the 2026 South Dakota legislative session. We just updated this page, I think yesterday, so now you have access to this. So KELOLAND News will post all of our legislative session related stories to this page, giving you access to the latest news. So for example, if you want to find this, just look on our website for news, our category up above, and then just look for the category that says South Dakota legislative session. Click on it, it will take you to this web page here. And you can see that we have all our updated 2026 legislative session stories at the top of this web page, starting with a video and then all those related stories. If you scroll down more, you could subscribe to our Capitol News Bureau reports. And then we give a little history of the legislative session, why this exists in South Dakota, some more recaps of the Senate versus the House, what a bill may look like. And then we have a recap of past legislative sessions. I believe we have 2025 that you can see here. Here's 2024. I believe we have 2023. Yep, that one's listed here too. But then at the top of the page, there will always be 2026. So this is now available to you as we're previewing the legislative session coming up on January 13th. And, you know, still to come on Inside the Newsroom, we got to get into those trending stories and we have to get our newsroom staff members on here. We're going to start with one new bill, and looking at how South Dakota hunting and fishing guides are responding to the new bill. So stay with us. We're going to have more on Inside the Newsroom when we come back after the break. And welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. Hunting and fishing guides said a new bill aimed at licensing their industry may not be a solution to problems. Digital reporter Ray Yost has more of that discussion in a KELOLAND.com original story that's now on our website, and she's here now to talk about those details. But Ray, let's start with a little bit of context. What new bill was featured in this story?
Well, it's called Senate Bill 16, and in a broad sense, it addresses licenses for hunting and fishing guides in the state, plus some other requirements, and then associated penalties if you don't have a license or don't meet some of those requirements. So it's called for fishing and hunting guides. It's a new bill, but it's not a new topic.
So how'd you come up with this story idea, and what drew you into it initially?
Well, actually, Capitol reporter Bob Mercer did the initial story on the proposed bill and some of the discussion of what it includes. And then there was a web team discussion about, hey, that'd be interesting. I wonder what guides think of this. And kind of just led me to doing the story. I happened to be able to be assigned to the story yesterday.
I love how you start this article. You include, I call it characters first. You introduce your fishing and hunting guide first before you even explain what SB 16 is. So why did you want to start the story this way? Again, I just find it so interesting.
I think, with any story you're looking at, you're trying to explain who it could impact. And, one of the fishing guide that I started with had some discussions. I think he drove home a point that it may not be the solution, this new bill, but it could help some of the problems that he perceives are happening in the fishing guide industry. So you want to bring someone in who the new bill could potentially impact. And, he had some really clear statements, really clear opinions, and it just fit. It worked that way.
Yeah, one of the first ones that you start off with right here is it's the Wild West out here right now. What a strong line.
Yeah.
During these interviews that you had, was there a moment when you were speaking with these people that kind of shifted or deepened that story angle for you?
Well, I think every source that you're able to interview and when they're candid and sharing their actually very thoughtful opinions and perceptions, it deepens the story. Because in this case, the fishing guide, Wild West, he sees some perceived issues with, like, he thinks right now anybody can just say they're a fishing guide.
Right.
Whereas when talking to some hunting guides, they're a little bit more reserved and a little bit more, they have a little different opinion of this potential bill because they maybe don't see the perceived problems as much with hunting guides as fishing guides do. So every source you have it deepens the story. It provides as much, more balanced opinions and more insight into what the potential of the bill is.
I like that you say the balanced opinion part of this, because reading this story, and I'm saying this for myself in my own experience while I was reading this, I felt like all the information presented to me was like a discussion more than anything else. It flowed. It was almost like a call and response because we had one versus the other versus the information. It's all intertwined. It worked for me. Was that the goal, like this discussion type aspect? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think when some stories really lend themselves to that because of what you get back from your sources. Other stories maybe aren't quite as conversational or discussion flow, but this one was because it's interesting. It was interesting to me because the fishing guide talked about some of the problems he perceives. The hunting guide noted some of the problems the fishing guide would perceive. And then a representative who introduced a bill last year kind of noted some of the some of the concerns shared with him. So the back and forth was almost natural because it was also almost as if they were in the same room. And I feel like that could be part of the discussion that we hear as this bill, if it makes it to committee, it'll be much more formal. But I think that those opinions and those questions will be addressed in a committee hearing if it gets there. And that's where it's almost a little bit conversational, too. It's not necessarily this opinion is shared and then this opinion from the other side is shared, but certainly those different opinions or facts that they bring with them are shared. So, yeah, it really became conversational.
Yeah, that worked for me.
Yeah.
That worked. And, you mentioned that Bob Mercer, our Capitol Bureau reporter, had done a story about this too when the bill was proposed, SB 16. But for you, what stood out the most as you were researching and learning more about SB 16 for the story?
I think one of the things that struck me was, there's going to be opinion because after covering, different GFP proposals, different bill proposals of any topic, there's usually, some strong opinions either way. So that didn't really maybe capture me as much as, or I don't know if surprise is the right word, but I think it was that the sources that I spoke to were able to kind of present sort of both from the fishing angle and from the hunting angle, like they had an understanding of what each industry and perhaps the shortcomings of our regulations or rules of each industry. That surprised me a little bit, being that it shouldn't maybe because they should be well-versed. They're very compatible hunting and fishing guides. You'd think they would see each other sometimes. But I think that was the thing maybe that I learned was there's a pretty keen understanding of what each industry is and some keen understanding of concerns or what are believed to be problems in each kind of with the way our regulations are.
Yeah. And is there anything that you hope that viewers can take away from your story, or if there was like one thing that you hope that they could walk away with from your article, what do you think that would be?
I feel like I say this quite a bit, but it's an example of, how we will cover the upcoming legislature in a way because, there's going to be more stories to come, which I feel like I say a lot. But if you look at this, it started with Bob in our Capitol Bureau. it became a discussion with our web team and my colleagues who I didn't even suggest the story. It was a coworker, Marissa, that had suggested it as a possibility. And then it kind of evolved where, the story is something we wanted to do, and then I got assigned to it. So it's really a great example of the collaboration and discussions and the follow-through. And in particular, it's applicable right now because we're coming up on the legislative session.
Right.
So here's a bill. Here's some of the impact. Now we got to make sure we kind of try to see how this bill continues. So again, I feel like I say, keep following for more stories. But a lot of times, especially on a bill, that's what happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Ray, thank you so much for taking us on this journey with you for this story. And everyone watching, if you want to read Ray's story for yourself, go ahead, absolutely do so. It's on KELOLAND.com right now. If you scan that QR code that you see on your screen, it will take you straight to our homepage. And stick around for more of Inside the Newsroom. We have an update to the Oldham-Ramona-Rutland recount for the district, all amid a looming lawsuit. Stay with us. And welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. The Oldham-Ramona-Rutland School District will continue after a recount board finalized the results. The board concluded that 367 votes were against dissolution and 362 votes were for it. Digital reporter Michael Dorn was in person for the recount on Tuesday and wrote about the details in a recent KELOLAND.com original. And Michael, there's a lot that was highlighted in this story, from the vote itself to the use of provisional ballots to an ongoing lawsuit. There really is a lot that you had to uncover here for this story. But let's start with a refresher. Why was there even a recount vote in the first place?
Right. So this all comes from a December 16th election. Previously, there was a petition that was filed with the school district to come up with a plan for dissolution. That petition received the necessary number of signatures, so that then went through. The district then had to come up with a plan for dissolution, pass that along to all the surrounding districts, and then get final approval from the Department of Education. Once that was approved, they could go ahead and get through with that election here. That took place on December 16th, and that was one of the closest elections I think I've ever seen in my life, which was left the votes tied at 363 votes, both for and against.
Yeah. That standstill was pretty crazy to see. And then I remember seeing you leave the newsroom yesterday, like either in the late morning, early afternoon, and I assumed it was for you to go over to witness the recount. So for your experience, how was it being present for that recount? How did that help you write the story? What was that like?
Yeah, so I went to the Rutland School. This is where that recount took place. We had our panel of the recount board there, and they were all looking at these votes, approving each vote one by one here, going through all the for votes, all the against votes for each district here. And for those of you who might not know how a recount board works, this basically works like they go through, someone tallies, two people keep track of all these tallies of the votes. And if they have any discrepancy when they reach the end, they have to go through, start all over, and make sure that these numbers are equal and what they are saying they are here.
Right, and we got that finalized vote after yesterday, but now there's still this lawsuit looming. That's one of the elements that you highlighted even in your headline. Mm-hmm. It's a group of area landowners within the school district. But for you, as you were writing the story, why did you want to include that purpose of the lawsuit here? What makes it so newsworthy?
I think it's a very important part of this story here. There's a couple different things. One is that lawsuit. The other is a complaint also filed from this election, talking about those provisional ballots, which were kind of the tiebreaker in this initial election, and also counted 4 of those here that were stamped in this last here recount. That's an important piece as well. That same group of area landowners also complained about the use of those provisional ballots, saying they shouldn't have been used in that way. But also this lawsuit here comes from a 2024 election where they tried to get some capital outlay certificates where the landowners allege that the school board basically moved the goalpost on how long this loan would be. They said they originally slated it for 1 year, but the verbiage then changed to include 21 years, and a judge then filed an injunction blocking the construction of a new school building here, which is kind of where this all starts, is the construction of a new school building for the Oldham-Ramona-Rutland district, but that has now been blocked by a judge, and that case has been named not moot by a judge very recently. So that is still very much ongoing as of now.
See, I'm going to get to this a little bit later, but you just sound like an expert with this because you've been like following this topic for so long. And, you know, with that, I think you did a great job writing this article in a conversational manner, or just a way that was very easy for an average viewer like me to understand, especially when dealing with these big topics of just votes in general, lawsuits. So you make it seem really easy. So how did you find yourself writing in a way that could be simple for viewers to comprehend?
Yeah, especially with a story like this, I think there's a lot of moving parts to keep track of here. You know, I think all of that is important to the story. You know, I don't think it's just about a recount election or anything else. I think it's all part of that bigger picture, and I kind of wanted to put that in a way to encompass that and make sure that is shown.
Yeah. As you said, this is a developing topic, and again, you've been covering it for weeks now. So what's your biggest takeaway from covering the overall timeline of this topic?
Yeah, it's a lot to take in here. This is not just one thing. I think what's most important is to kind of zoom out and look at it all as a whole here. Look at the history. How did we get here in the first place, and where we're going next here.
Yeah. And now that we're at the point with this vote for ORR, what do you hope viewers learn or understand the most from the story?
Well, it's definitely not over by any means here. There's still quite a bit of legwork that has to be done on some ends of this, but I just wanted to keep people informed about what's going on in this district here.
Well, Michael, thank you for sharing all these details here at the Digital Desk. And everyone watching, you could read Michael's story for yourself by going to KELOLAND.com. Just scan that QR code that you see on your screen right now to take you to our homepage on our website. And stick around for more Inside the Newsroom. We're going to learn about a 91-year-old retiring after decades of work with Billion Automotive. Stay with us. And welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. A 91-year-old Sioux Falls man is calling it a career after decades with Billion Automotive. Kelly Vogt takes us to his retirement celebration.
It's an afternoon with balloons, cake, and lots of laughs. 91-year-old Gene Fouth officially retired from Billion Automotive last month, but today the company is holding a celebration for him in Sioux Falls. He started his career with Billion in the early 60s, went to another dealership for a while, and returned in 1969. All told, Fouth has worked nearly 6 decades for Billion Automotive and had different job titles over the years. His most recent job was delivering leased vehicles to companies.
I never had any hobbies, and I just enjoyed this so much, just being around the dealership, regardless what I was doing. It was just fun.
Dave Billion is the president of Billion Automotive. Fouth wasn't just an employee, but a close friend to Dave's late father, Henry, who started Billion.
He was my dad's right-hand man, my dad's go-to guy for anything that came up. I mean, they would talk about together, and they just valued each other's opinions and each other's advice, and they valued particularly, I think, their friendship.
While Fouth's time on the job has come to an end, It may not be the end of his visits to Billion.
I can go back anytime I want to. They didn't bar me from coming back and seeing him once in a while.
After all, what he'll miss most from his decades-long career is the people.
Such a special story. And Kelly Vogt joins us at the digital desk now to talk more about this story. Kelly, before you and your photog even arrived at the party, what were you initially curious or interested to learn about?
Well, when I was told that a 91-year-old was retiring, I was wondering, what made him want to work there so long and why retire at 91? And so that, of course, was the number one question in my mind.
Mine would be like, what does it take to work 59 years at one spot? What's the secret? What was the atmosphere of that party like when you were there? And did that influence of the atmosphere make its way into your story at all?
Sure. Several of his former coworkers showed up and some current employees of Billion showed up, and, they were all happy to see each other, catching up, talking about their time in the business. So yeah, it was a really nice, friendly atmosphere.
Between you and your photojournalist, what do you think was one of the most important visuals or sounds to capture in the story? And then what was your plan to capture it?
Well, I think just seeing Gene talk with, those who are his friends and his coworkers and just seeing the joy on their faces, that's something that I think was important to include in the story.
Was there anything that you learned from the interviews that didn't make it into this package, but you think our viewers should know?
I think I tried to get the most important parts in that package. Overall, he was just really fun to visit with, and I'm glad I got to do the story.
Yeah. What do you think is your biggest takeaway from a story like this?
What is my biggest story? I said that wrong. My biggest takeaway. Well, there is that phrase out there that if you truly love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And I think this guy is an example of that saying. I asked him a few times, why'd you stay here until you were 91?
Yeah.
And he said, well, I simply loved it.
Wow. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for sharing these details here at the Digital Desk. And everyone, that's all the time that we have today for Inside the Newsroom. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back live tomorrow at 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock right here on KELOLAND Plus, or you can watch this again on demand on KELOLAND Plus. So until next time, have a great day, everyone.